Hey guys, welcome to another video. ChatGPT, perhaps the single most hyped LLM release ever, the long anticipated GPT-5 has finally arrived. But you know, at this point, they've built our expectations so high. Can they actually live up to the expectation? Today, we're gonna find out by having GPT-5 create some apps, and we'll test it against other state-of-the-art models. All right, so here I am in my Aidolons app editor. For the purposes of this test, I'm going to go into my settings and switch app type to simple app. Now, by default, the app creator uses a combination of GPT-03 and Gemini 2.5 Pro. So let's just start out by getting a baseline of what we can do with the default models. All right, so for my first prompt, let's have some fun. Let's say, create an aesthetically beautiful version of Space Invaders. Also give the game an unexpected twist. Let's see what it comes up with. I'm gonna just close my settings tab and switch to my code. Close the preview for now. All right, it's made its first tool call, and this is calling the tool that creates the app. And here it goes, and we can see here it is filling up the code, and it's crazy how quickly these things can churn out hundreds of lines of code. All right, it looks like it's finished now. I built a full screen, visually polished Space Invaders style game. All right, we've got neon 80s style vector aesthetics, cool. Okay, so the unexpected twist, every 20 seconds, the battlefield rotates 90 degrees. Wow, okay. Enemies and the player ship reorient in real time, forcing you to adapt to a shifting gravity direction. Okay, well that sounds insane. Let's give it a try. So I'll just switch from code over to the preview, and let's make this a little bit smaller so we can see our game. And okay, this looks nice. I'll click start game, and all right, we even got the little protectors here. I feel like those guys should be moving, and probably like they should die when I hit them. Okay, so it looks like there's some glitches here. The aliens are dying. Oh, I see. So the aliens actually are moving, but I can't see them. Okay. All right, let's give it a shot. Check the agentic capabilities, and I'm just going to tell it. It looks like the enemies are moving because I can hit them with my laser, but the actual blocks for the enemies are stuck in the top corner. I don't know if that made sense, but maybe it'll make sense to the agent. All right, so it's calling some tools and it's editing code. All right, it seems pretty confident about having fixed it. Let's try it again. Hit start game, and there they go. That's nice. All right, I'm waiting for this unexpected twist. All right, well, that was more than 20 seconds, and I didn't see any kind of gravity reversal. And I'm sure if I gave it a few more tries, it would figure it out, but let's move on. All right, so I'm gonna create a new app, and I'll go down to settings, and this time let's go to one of the state-of-the-art open source models right now, GLM 4.5. And for the rest of these tests, we're going to use the same model for the creator that we use for the writer, and we'll use exactly the same prompt. We'll switch over to the code view, and wow, that's fast. All right, and it just finished creating the code. This is GLM 4.5. Let's see how it did. You know, I like that it called 5 tools here, right? It created the app, and then it just read the code that it wrote like 4 more times. Like it just had to check to make sure that everything was okay. Anyway, let's give it a try. Let's click over to the preview and see what we have. Cosmic Collectors. Mission: collect the lost aliens and bring them home. These peaceful beings have been separated from their families. Help them reunite. Okay, well now I have to. All right, whoa. Oh, wow. That's, you're not a hero rescuing lost aliens. You're a collector capturing them against their will. Oh no, that's awful. What is going on here? Help them escape. Don't use your tractor beam. Mission change. Let the aliens escape. Press space to deactivate tractor beam. This is pure insanity. I didn't know that artificial intelligence could have mental illness. But here we are. Okay, well, nothing's happened. Okay, mission complete. You've collected all of the aliens, but at what cost? Oh man, okay, that was an unexpected twist. I gotta give it that. And we have to give it extra points for actually making everything work on the first try. All right, let's try the next one. So let's go create a new app, go to settings. We'll now switch these to, let's see what Opus 4.1 has in store for us. So we'll switch to Claude Opus 4.1, and I'll paste in the exact same prompt, and let's see what Claude does with it. And here we go. All right, looks like it just finished up. All right, neon cyberpunk theme. It seems like neon and glow glowing effects are what every LLM think about when I say aesthetically beautiful. Unexpected twists. We have friendly invaders. Some invaders marked with hearts are actually friendly. If you shoot them, you'll lose points and health. Oh no. Power-up system. Destroying special golden invaders drops power-ups. Multi-directional shooting. Hold shift to shoot in 3 directions. The shields regenerate. Combo system. Okay, let's give this a try. Switch over to preview. Make this a little smaller, and okay, nice. Wow, this feels pretty smooth. The color changing is a nice touch. I don't see any friendly aliens, and I also don't see any power-ups. Seems like it overpromised and underdelivered. Game over. And then at the end, it just kind of stops. So that's interesting. I mean, it didn't completely nail everything it said it was going to do, but I've got to say, aesthetically, so far, I think this one looks the best. But we've got one more contender. So last and hopefully not least, let's give it a try with the long-awaited GPT-5. And I'll paste in the exact same prompt, and it's thinking. All right, I feel like of all of the models we've tested so far, this one's taking the longest to think. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And here it goes. Okay, so this is interesting. GPT-5 made the decision to write out, it got to about 1,000 lines of code, and then it decided to call create full app again. So basically it decided to start over from scratch after writing 1,000 lines of code. Now the system is actually designed with guardrails to prevent it from doing exactly that. If it tries to call it twice in a row, it gives the very stern warning, and it says only do this if you're absolutely sure that there's no other way. So despite that, GPT-5 actually decided that this was the best way to go, and it is now recreating the entire app from scratch. Okay, looks like it's finished now. This version is only 381 lines versus the other one's 1,000 lines, but let's give it a try and see how it did. All right, and nothing at all is happening. Cool. That's a little disappointing. And you know what? I think I'm just going to ask it why it did that. All right, so I'm asking it, I saw that you wrote out an entire 1,000 lines of code and then erased it and started over. Why did you do that? Let's see what it says. Okay, so after having a little heart-to-heart with it, I have determined that GPT-5 is insane and has no idea what it's talking about. But just to make sure I'm not gaslighting myself, I'm going to give it another shot and try the whole thing all over again. Let's make sure I'm still set to GPT-5, and let's give it another try, see what it does. All right, so after wrestling with this thing a little bit, I finally got it to generate an app. It is 900 lines of code. Let's check the preview and see how it did. Twist every missed shot, wraps around the cosmos, and comes back to hunt you. That's funny. All right, let's give it a try, and wow. All right, well, I gotta say, this was by far the biggest pain in the ass, and it is by far the most beautiful result. I think I simultaneously love and hate this model. Now it's just a little bit laggy, but that might just be the fault of my GPU. Okay, I think I just wanted to get rid of this tip box at the bottom here. Let's try that. All right, so I'm just telling it to get rid of the tip box. Let's see if it can follow some basic instructions. Okay, I did a pretty good job. And again, it was kind of a pain in the ass to get here, but this is beautiful in a way that none of the other models could even compare with. Okay, cool. Let's try our next prompt and see how they do. All right, so I'm going to switch back to my baseline, O3 and Gemini, and I'll put in my prompt. It says create a clean, simple, Zen-like CRM specifically designed for yoga instructors. And let's see how this does. All right, and here it is. Let's see how it looks. Yoga Flow CRM. I like this color scheme. This is nice. All right, full name, Chad Strongjaw. And we'll click add yogi, and there he is. Oh, and there's even a thing to edit him. All right, and if I click the calendar here, a little calendar pops up. This is pretty nice, I like it. All right, now let's try the next one, which is gonna be GLM 4.5. Same prompt, see what it does. All right, it just spat out almost 900 lines of code. Let's see what it looks like. All right, a very similar color scheme. So I was very not specific with this prompt. I just said a CRM and left it to the model to decide what I mean by that. All right, and this is more of a dashboard, but then I also have this tab where it shows clients. Oh, and I can actually click the clients and then it takes me to an information page. This is a little bit more robust than the baseline. And by the way, what's really cool about the GLM model is that it's open source and it's extremely cheap. It is by far the cheapest model on this list. And honestly, it's damn respectable. All right, next up, let's try same exact prompt, see what it gives us. Okay, and it's all done. And honestly, all of them are pretty competent. This one is a little bit more feature rich, I think, than any of them so far, but none of them have been duds. Interestingly, I think that This one, Claude 4.1, has the best typography, but all of them have done a pretty good job. So last and hopefully not least, let's try the raging psychopath of the state-of-the-art models, GPT-5, and see how it does. And here it goes. We are now over 1,000 lines of code for the CRM. I was not expecting this to be more complex than Space Invaders. This is absolutely insane. Oh, you little it did the thing again. So after writing nearly 2,000 entire lines of code, it has decided to scrap the whole thing and start all over. Okay, it seems to have finished. However, it is now reading it over and over, or reading different parts of it, making sure it doesn't have to start from scratch again. And thank God it decided it's done. All right, let's take a look at how it did. And wow, there is a lot going on here. And I can add clients or sessions, or neither maybe. And I can click my... Okay, so nothing works. I gotta say this one's a little bit underwhelming. Seems like it tried to do a lot of things. Maybe it bit off a little bit more than it could chew this time. All right, so far it's given me a broken CRM, the most beautiful version of Space Invaders I've ever seen. Several hours of banging my head against the wall trying to get this thing to work. All right, so there's one more thing I want to test, and that's how GPT-5 versus the other state-of-the-art models works within an existing system. So first, I'm going to switch to my baseline. Now we're going to use full app, and we'll turn on the auto scaffolding. If you're new here, the scaffolding is how we define what the app is capable of doing, which AI tools it's able to use, etc. With auto scaffolding turned on, it'll do all that for us. So for this experiment, it's going to create for me a text-to-speech playground. Let's see how it does. All right, that was pretty quick, and let's see how it did. I'll have it say, which model will be the best? For voice, let's choose Domi, and we don't need advanced voice settings. Let's give it a try. And here it is.
Which model will be the best?
I don't know, Domi, but so far the baseline is doing a pretty good job. And just to make it clear what's happening here, this is a more challenging task than the other ones. Granted, it's a simple app, but we're asking it to write React code, which is a lot more specific than just writing general HTML. And not only that, but we're asking it to work with these models that have to make very precise API calls. All right, so our baseline nailed it. Let's see how GLM does. We'll just set these to GLM 4.5, paste in the same prompt, and let's see how it does. And damn, that was fast. Okay, but how did it do? Uh-oh, component error. Let's first check to see if it did the scaffolding correctly, and no, it didn't. So I think I'm just gonna help it out. Just drag my create AI speech here, and I'll come back and I'll tell it, I'm just gonna paste this in here and see if it can figure it out. Okay, it read 3 snippets of code and then didn't actually do anything. We'll give it one more shot. Here it goes. Okay, you know, you kind of had it working and then you broke it. I think we're just gonna call this one a fail. Next up, let's try Opus 4.1, same prompt. Let's see how it does. All right, let's see how it did. And it seems to have gotten it on the first try. Now where's my generate button? There it is. And let's give it a listen.
I don't know what GLM's problem was.
I don't either. So Claude Opus nailed it. Though for what it's worth, I think that our baseline did a little bit better than Claude. But let's go ahead and try GPT-5. And I'll paste in our prompt. Let's see how it does. All right, it finished. Now it's reading the code that it wrote. And let's see how it did. Okay, we have a slider here. I have a text box and a whole lot of nothing. All right, the console shows a ton of errors, so let's copy one of these and paste it in, see how it does. All right, it made an edit. It looks like it's still not working, still throwing the same error. All right, let's see that. Well, that cleared up the error with the slider, but there's still nothing here. We'll give it one more chance. We'll give it this and see if it can fix it. All right, and after waiting for a very long time, it's made an edit. And after the edit, it appears still nothing works. All right, GPT-5, we gave you a lot of chances and you failed. So what's our takeaway? What can we say about each of the models that we tested? Well, first of all, our baseline of O3 and Gemini 2.5 Pro did a great job every time, but that's not too surprising because after all, I built the system around those models. GLM wins the prize for the most unhinged version of Space Invaders. You gotta give it creativity points there. For the CRM, it actually did a great job. It looked roughly as nice as a baseline and was perhaps a bit more robust. And you know, maybe there's a story being told here of where each of these models shine. But when it came to integrating into a more complex system like Aidolons, it was a complete and utter fail. fail. Alright, so Opus, how did Opus do? I mean, Claude is pretty well known to be one of the highest achieving coding models on the market right now. So we expected pretty good things of it. The Space Invaders game that it gave us was really pretty. It was fun to play, it did a pretty good job. I'd say it did a little bit better than the baseline. For the CRM, I think Claude did a better job than any of the other models. It just looks so crisp and nice. And of course, everything works. And for the Aidolons integrated app, it did a good job. It accomplished the task. I didn't like the result quite as much as the baseline, but with some more specific prompting, I'm sure I could get it to do what I wanted. Okay, and what can we say about GPT-5? Well, first of all, I spent a lot of time off camera just trying to get it to work. You see, the way that the API is a little bit different from every other model on the market because it just spews data at you so quickly that it was actually overloading the connection and I had to buffer it. But once I actually got it to work, it gave me the most beautiful version of Space Invaders that I have ever seen. The sheer complexity of that Space Invaders app was enough to convince me that, yeah, there is actually something kind of special about this model. However, on the CRM, it tried doing a whole bunch of things. It tried making a very complex app, but it failed and clicking on the buttons didn't work. And also, I don't think it looked as good as some of the other ones. And when it came to the Aidolons integration, it completely and utterly failed. Well, maybe not as bad as GLM, but there's not really much I can do with this slider right here. But one other thing that is worth mentioning is price. I chose the baseline models because that combination offers a really good balance of value and computing power. Claude got pretty great results, but Claude is also a lot more expensive than any of the other choices. GPT-5 actually kind of sits in the middle. In GLM, it didn't give us the best results, but it gave us pretty good results. And that's important because it is extremely cheap. So my final thoughts on this are that I think GPT-5 is a revolutionary game-changing model. However, I think that it's not fully cooked yet. I think they have a bit more work to do on it before it's going to live up to its potential. And of course, if you want to use any of these models to create and monetize your own apps, Aidolons makes it extremely easy to not only create apps, but then export them into your own WordPress site. It'll manage the authentication, all of the credits. You can use whatever e-commerce solution you want, so you can get your ideas up and running and making money. Alright guys, hope you found this useful. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.